Horrible atrocities are committed every day. However, we only end up hearing about a handful of them. Whether it is due to those atrocities being done to minorities or in countries across the sea, general public apathy, or someone or the government trying to cover it up, there are many stories that go untold. So what is the best way to tell them? When those affected can't speak out, how do we best share their stories so the horrible things they've gone through don't go unnoticed? One of the best ways to help spread a message for the voiceless is through art. Whether it's through documentary films like the work of Lourdes Portillo, theater like the work of Chungmi Kim, or through performance art and installation similar to the work of Rebecca Belmore. While all these mediums have their pros and cons, they present activism to the public in a way that can be more palpable while still being powerful and can easily be shared with the masses. Ciudad Juárez, Mexico is a town located near the Mexican-US border. It is also a location where many local women have disappeared and about 30 women have been found dead under similar circumstances. This targeting based on gender was dubbed Feminicide by activists, claiming that it was extremely important to differentiate it from any other homicide case. However, the law enforcement of the town has done little to nothing to stop these kidnappings or do a proper, thorough investigation. More than anything, the police and the government attempted to cover up and ignore the disappearances, going even to the point of running a disinformation campaign so that people wouldn't know or wouldn't understand what was happening. Many of the officials wrote the women off as whores and drug addicts, which helped to justify their inaction when in reality many were factory workers. Lourdes Portillo ended up creating a documentary by the name of Señorita Extraviada that investigates these Juárez disappearances, and was the first documentary to gain international attention for the issue of feminicide in Ciudad Juárez, Mexico. Alice Driver, a journalist based in Mexico City, describes Portillo as a self-identified Chicana who narrates her personal investigation of feminicide in Ciudad Juárez. She is both director and detective, searching through the lens of the camera for those responsible. Señorita Extraviada not only investigated the disappearances, shedding light on these things covered up, but also brought the story to the attention of the people around the world, including people unaware in the city itself. When it comes to documentary as an artistic medium to spread a message, it's probably one of the most straightforward. Using film as a medium allows the content to be extremely spreadable. You can share the file, stream it, see it in a theater, or purchase a physical copy. This allows the story to be accessible to virtually anyone with a screen and an internet connection. Documentaries also give very blatant presentations of facts, so there's nothing to interpret, while still feeling more approachable than an essay or a written testimony. In Korea, many women are dealing with the Japanese government covering up a different atrocity, one that they have been covering up for almost 90 years. Starting as early as 1932, women from Korea as well as other surrounding countries were deceived, abducted, imprisoned, and forced into sexual slavery by Japan's Imperial Army in military rape camps known as comfort stations throughout Asia during World War II. These women, now referred to as comfort women, kept quiet about their traumatic experiences until the 1990s, when the first woman came forward in 1991, stating that she had been a comfort woman, and a social movement for the redress emerged in Asia. Despite the hundreds of women that have come forward with their experiences, Japan still refuses to admit that it ever happened, and without the help of those who have allied themselves with the former comfort women, it would be very possible that as years go on, their stories could die with them. Chungmi Kim is one woman who, after interviewing a handful of survivors, is doing her best to make sure that their stories live on, and that the Japanese government is held accountable. She attempts this through the medium of plays and theater. In 1999, her play Hanako premiered, a play that follows a granddaughter, her grandmother, and comfort women, survivors who have traveled to New York to speak out. The play attempts to foster compassion for their survivors while allowing the audience to identify with a granddaughter figure as a witness. Later in 2004, she revised the show by strengthening the relationship between the grandmother and her granddaughter, and wrote the final scene to be more hopeful. This new version challenged the discourse of shame and presented survivors as dignified and as people who are integral to the social movement. Finally, the show reached its third and final incarnation in 2005 as a play titled Nabi. Unlike the other shows, this play was mainly in South Korea, acting more as an educational piece as well as a step towards catharsis. The director of the show even saying that the Seoul Department of Education selected her performance work for live historical education. The show was also the most positively received of the three. But using theater as activism certainly has its downfalls, mainly due to the fact that it has less accessibility than film. Sure, you could watch a bootleg of the show, but in order to get the proper experience of it, you have to buy a ticket to see the show, which can be quite expensive, and also hope that it comes to a theater near you before it ends its run. However, theater also allows for a very different connection with the audience. It can draw more crowds with the idea of getting a partially fictional experience, which hopefully will be put into a greater real-life context. Also, the fact that you're watching these events unfold to real people in front of you in real time allows for a strong emotional attachment and reaction to these events. In the words of Colleen Murphy, another playwright activist, it is because it's alive. It's live. It's living human beings in the form of actors going through this. Or Elizabeth Sun referring to this piece in particular. This redressive theater creates a space of re-engagement where artists and audiences can remember and bear witness to the history and legacies of those brave women. Finally, let's look at a situation that is even more similar to the one in Ciudad Juárez, the disappearing of First Nations women in Vancouver, Canada. Between 1920 and 2002, more than 65 women were disappeared from the downtown east side area of Vancouver, many of which were eventually linked to the body parts found on the land of Robert Picton. A majority of those women were First Nations, a term used in Canada for all Indigenous people who have been historically marginalized from the imaginary of Canadian citizenship. Also, similar to Juárez, because some were also sex workers and drug addicts, their disappearances garnered little attention from the police or from official media outlets. In response to the city's inaction on June 23, 2002, Rebecca Belmore performed her piece Vigil on the corner of Gore and Cordova streets, two streets that are common sites of abduction. As Belmore described in a performance description, in the performance, crimes against the body, the native body, the woman's body, are embodied in, enacted by, or inscribed on her own body, as if in an act of atonement. Performance art is also a very interesting form as activist art, as it most closely resembles a traditional protest. However, performance art is much more ambiguous. It is a lot harder to figure out exactly what the piece is about if you are not already familiar with it. You might find yourself having to look up what it is about afterwards, which you can't always trust your audience to do. Also, due to its nature, a performance art piece only really happens once, and if you weren't there, then you missed it. However, presenting in a space outside of a museum allows it to be accessible to those who may not otherwise be able to or think of going to a museum, as well as bringing those who would go see similar art in a museum into part of a city that they might not otherwise go. As Maggie Tate put so well, the situation of Rebecca Belmore's performance of Vigil outside of a museum presents an opportunity to disrupt rather than confirm social order by bringing viewers outside of the gallery into a space that they may not otherwise visit. So it puts viewers right into the belly of the beast. Overall, art is one of the best mediums to spread activism. It allows topics that may seem dense, intimidating, or horrifying to become, when done correctly, more approachable and palatable while still inciting change. It can often even create an emotional bond to these people's stories that might not be created otherwise. Good luck, 3 a.m. Phoebe. This is a forward message. Good luck. Your comma placement fucked me up. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm assuming you're not doing bloopers for this one. Palpable. More palatable.
Now do it like you know the word palpable.
I don't. It just sounds so strange. Palpable. Am I saying it right? I hate this word. Homosexual side. Why? Oh no, it's gonna be Japanese. Sorry, Japan. There's a bubble in my chest. Atrocity. A different atrocity. I know the word atrocity. What's Hanako? No. That's just not the word. This is just